It's the World This Week, 7 days, 4 Paris-based correspondents, 1 hour. Bit of a sporting edition, you might say. Let's say hello to Christopher Dickey, foreign editor of the Daily Beast. How are you, sir?
Good, thanks. You know how I love sports.
Okay. Also with us, freelance Turkish reporter Ayşe Gül Sert.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome to Dov Alfon, editor-at-large for Israeli daily newspaper Haaretz.
Hello.
And Andreas Evagora, commentator and senior producer at Eurosport.
Good evening.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
The World This Week, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, the hashtag World This Week. Christopher Dickey says he loves sports. Well, he's in for a treat. After 1984 and 1998, Paris, once again, the world's capital of the world's most popular sport. A concert by David Guetta in the fan zone at the foot of the Eiffel Tower, kicking off the celebrations on the eve of Euro 2016. More teams than ever before, 24, with an opening match at the National Stadium, the Stade de France. Now you'll recall it's the same venue that was targeted on November 13th as part of the Paris attacks. France was playing Germany that night in a friendly. And Andreas Evagora, it's now, we're getting ready for the kickoff. All the stories today are about, people getting in their car and driving 2,400 miles from Bucharest to attend this opening match. It's all about football. Is this something you were thinking of when you woke up this morning, November 13th?
I was certainly thinking about the football this morning, and I can understand that because this is the biggest event in European football. It's the third biggest sports event in the world, and I've seen many Romanians in Paris this morning. You've mentioned the November attacks. Obviously, that's always the backdrop to big sports events in France now. But the preparations for this event have been catastrophic. I mean, it really couldn't have been worse, both on and off the pitch, in terms of the terrible floods we've had recently, the labour dispute, and on the pitch, completely dominated by a racism row. So the preparations have not been good. Let's hope it can be forgotten and we concentrate on the football quite soon.
Dov Alfon, your thoughts on this?
I think it's a clash of two big cliches. French bashing, or waiting, let the game begin and it will be catastrophic. There will be strikes, there will be lightning, there will be rain like the deluge. And of course, the French kind of laziness in it, like, okay, maybe we'll clear up the rubbish today, maybe this evening, maybe it's tomorrow. And I think it's from a cultural point of view, this is really fascinating to watch it now develops.
Very, very fascinating to watch how it develops, because you always get the sense, Christopher Dickey, that things could go either way. The French don't do half measures.
Well, yes, they do. I mean, look, the strikes are bad. The strikes are difficult. It may be very difficult for people to take the D train to the Stade de France tonight. But in fact, this is a huge undertaking, and you have the shadow of terrorism looming over all of it. Putting aside the strikes and the floods and all of those things, I mean, let's do remember that the Stade de France was a target on November 13th. And let's also remember that places that could never be protected were the places where most of the killing went on. So they can protect the Stade de France, but what's going to happen in the cafes? What's going to happen in the streets if the terrorists want to strike? Now, that said, there's a tremendous party mood out there. I was walking around the city today. There are Romanian flags everywhere. There were, needless to say, a lot of drunk Brits around. It was a party town. And let's just hope it stays that way.
And it's good for the economy, too. I was, it's not that I was drinking, but I was going from bar to bar to just speak,
And you weren't drinking.
And of course not. Of course not. Never before 12 noon, like Hemingway said. But in a way, it's great to see a Paris that's in a movement. Look, I'm coming from Turkey. Soccer is a part of our pride. And we are in the games.
Turkey, which, unlike Cyprus, qualified.
We can
still sit next to each other.
And the thing which is very interesting that you're saying that, troublemaker, but in a way, for me, this is also in kind of in the world we live in the countries we all come from, where it's so polarized and divided, and where it's us against them. It's kind of, at least for Turkey, I'm hoping that it is a Turkish team kind of spirit, and we are all French kind of spirit that is coming back, which we all need. And if that could really come through soccer and the games, Well, how great is that?
These things can be hugely positive. I mean,
Yeah.
in '98, in the World Cup, of course, it did help that France won, but in the World Cup, it really changed the entire mood of the country. It went from a very negative feel to a sense of optimism and possibility for the first time at that point in a long, long time. It would be great if this had the same effect.
Let me ask about, because we saw on Thursday those attacks in Tel Aviv, and our correspondent was saying that within hours, everything was cleaned up. People made a point of going back to that very same cafe. It was open for business. What's your reaction when you look at how France has reacted to those Paris attacks? We still have the jitters here on the day of the kickoff of the World Cup, the Euro 2016.
Yeah, but first of all, this is Tel Aviv, and it's really an emblem of, I don't care about those terrorists, I'm going to my usual cafe, while in Jerusalem, generally, it's going to be kill all the Arabs, you never make peace with these people, etc. So the polarizing between inside Israel is already very strong. In Paris, it was a huge attack, very well planified on different places, and it's really a national shock. They're not used to it also. So I thought they really took it very well. I remember clearly the call to go to cafe, to terrace, right? And just having a drink at a cafe to prove that the French way is winning and that we have our say here. I was very impressed.
And now with all the talk we've had in the build-up to the tournament about is there enough police? Should there be outdoor screens? Should there be fan zones?
There'll never be enough police. You can't protect a whole country. Let's be honest about this. You can protect a stadium, but outside a stadium, as your correspondents have pointed out, there's an outer ring, and then there's an outer ring, and then another ring. And in fact, the closer you get to the stadium, probably the safer you are, because at some stage there's going to be a build-up of people. France is a country where there's so many ports of entry. There's 10 cities involved, many hundreds of thousands of fans. So any security expert will say you can't protect the whole country and all the stadium. It's a question of limiting the potential for these kinds of attacks.
Who's your favorite for the tournament?
Germany.
Germany.
Yes.
Okay. A lot of people in this town today think it's France. On Twitter, we have one reaction. Favorite teams for Euro 2016, Spain and France. Sad not to see Benzema playing, he is saying. Karim Benzema, out of the team, the Real Madrid striker, who called it racism when he was left out, this after a sex tape blackmail scandal. And you were talking, Christopher Dickey, about how it can be emblematic for a national team, everybody getting together behind their players. In this particular case, it's interesting to see another fan favorite has emerged. His name is Antoine Griezmann. He plays for Real Madrid rivals from across town, Atletico. And his sister escaped death at the Bataclan concert hall on the night.
Well, I mean, there you go. I don't think we ought to dwell too much on the Bataclan and all the terrorism in November, but you know, people do get behind the national team, and people feel, especially in France, I think, where you have such a mix of races and backgrounds in the team, notwithstanding Benzema's claim. I mean, after all, he's making that claim after a terrible scandal of blackmail. I think people get behind it, and it's a real unifying moment.
Well, yes, no, let's not forget his replacement, Olivier Giroud, in the team is being booed by French fans. He was booed against Cameroon. He was booed against Scotland. So this is having an effect on the team because there's a pro-Benzema camp and an anti-Benzema camp. Benzema, for the moment, has not committed any crime. He's saying that should not exclude him from playing for France. The French Football Federation say playing for France is not just about what you do on the pitch. He's their best forward. No one would dispute that, and he's not here. If France don't win, then it will become a lightning rod. France will not win because of Benzema. If they do very well, then it will be forgotten.
Yeah, but on the other hand, can you have a guy on the team who's accused of blackmailing other people? I mean,
and another team player too.
And another team player. I mean, this is not exactly building solidarity on the team.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. And it was a big call for the federation and Deschamps, the coach.
That's why Turkey might win.
And if not, Mesut Ozil from Germany might say, I love Turkey too. So.
Well, this is the thing. We've had statements, perhaps some that have stuck out are those of another French player, Manchester City's Bakary Sagna. He said, I'm black, some are North African, some are French, maybe one day some will be Chinese. Some are French, he said. Well, an unfortunate turn of words for the defender of Malian origin who was asked about playing against Romania.
Would you come back to Romania after the tournament?
It would be a pleasure for me to return to this beautiful country. I have a very special relationship with Romania and even have some Romanians working at my house. I like Romanians a lot. They have a great mentality, so why not?
Okay, he probably wishes he hadn't said that, Christopher Dickey. But seriously, more seriously, it is a double-edged sword, football, because on the one hand, we've had a racism row. On the other hand, you could make the argument that football does more for integration in this country than any other program.
Well, yes, except that it's one thing to have an integrated football or soccer team. It's another thing to have a society that's genuinely integrated. If it helps somebody from the 9-3, from the 93 postal code area, when he's or he or she goes to get a job in something that has nothing to do with football, that would be great. But in fact, there's no indication that that's the case. It's very much like racism in the United States. It took a long time for sports to be integrated, then they were integrated, and everybody said, well, that's just great. We've got black baseball players, black football players, black basketball players. For the people who weren't football, basketball, or baseball players, it didn't help them very much.
You were making the joke, Dov Alfon, about Mehmet Ozil, the German football star.
I feel this question is coming towards me.
It is. No, but it's a reflection of the change in Europe's national squads reflects the changes in Europe itself.
It's true, but also in terms of Turkey, Germany, we have a very special relationship that is kind of, maybe we'll speak about politics in a little bit. It's becoming more and more special in a way. But it is now an intricate link between Turkey and Germany. And so how European are you, how German are you, how Turkish are you, how clean is your blood is another.
If you look at when Switzerland play Albania, two brothers will play against each other, the Shaka brothers. They both could have played for Switzerland or Albania, and they pick one country each. So that's another element that has happened in a World Cup. It's the first time it's happened in a Euro.
All right. On that point, a more integrated Europe for some, after all, but for others, it's not necessarily the case. It's strange that here we are, this celebration of Europe taking place while there's a Brexit referendum about to happen, Andreas.
Yeah, that is very ironic, and it's right in the middle of the tournament as well. And perhaps ironic because if anything, I think the British will probably send more fans here than any other country. I think it's something like 500,000 fans coming here supporting Northern Ireland, Wales, England, and the Republic are here as well. But at the same time, you don't have to be in the European Union to compete in the Euro, and the English are well aware of that. But it would be very ironic if the British leave the EU right in the middle of the Euro. But it's quite possible.
All right. Israel didn't qualify, but they could have been in Euro 2016.
It's really the story of Israeli football, right? They could. They didn't, but they could.
What's your view, though, on how this continent has changed, especially in the past year, as these 24 teams go at it?
Yeah. Well, I was positioned in Italy before coming to Paris as a reporter. And I remember our very first evening with the suitcases in the apartment, we opened the windows and there was suddenly shouting, oh, and there was a game going on, Roma against Tombe, and the entire building was watching, all the neighbors. And it was really like a Fellini scene, but very, very, very touching. And there are a lot of countries, including Israel, but they don't really have a football culture. And I must say, I suspect that France doesn't have a real football culture as England or Italy understand the term. So 24 seems to me a lot of countries. And I hope it won't be too boring the first 2 weeks for the people to...
Well, you have to say, a lot of tickets were still for sale recently, which would never happen in a football country. France is not a football country. It doesn't have a tradition of mass spectator attendance, as an example, in the top flight in France, the average attendance is less than 20,000.
But it's the most
in
popular
Germany,
sport. So does that mean that the French don't like sport?
No, I underlined actually going to matches. Fewer than 20,000 on average go to a Ligue 1 game. And Ligue 1 is not bad at the moment. In Germany, it's close to 45,000. In England, it's around 40,000. There's no tradition of away fans at all in France, apart from 2 or 3 teams. So actually going to a match is not in the culture as it is in Italy.
How do you explain that?
Oh, I think France, you could say it's a slight intellectualization of sport. I think a lot of people look down on football fans, and they still do when you see it coverage in the press. And France, they do like a lot of different sports. You know, cycling is a huge sport, tennis is a huge sport. Whereas you go to England, it really is all about football.
Christopher Dickey, what do you think of this country that's a bit strange in the sense that in America, every newspaper has sports pages in it, and a lot of them. In France, sports is relegated to an entirely different newspaper.
Well, François, you know me. That suits me just fine. I sympathize completely.
The intellectualization of it?
Yeah, I mean, look, the whole business of living vicariously through sports is something that a lot of people, a lot of cultures do. In Britain, you do have a huge fan base for football, but you also have a huge hooligan culture that is a real problem.
I'll stand up for the English because the report earlier said that English fans in Marseille, there's about 20,000, mainly young, mainly men, mainly drunk people in bars, and there was one arrest, which in any other context...
So the Marseille police are holding back?
In any other in any other context, that would be seen as a success, but it's exactly what you were talking about. We look at society through the prism of football. In any other context, one arrest out of 20,000 young men would be a huge success. Unfortunately, when it comes to England football fans, it's seen as a big hooligan problem.
Cliché again.
I've spoken with people down there. It really isn't.
But to agree with Cyprus, but
Thank you.
in a way, but because, look, where I live in Istanbul, I am about 5 minutes walk to Beşiktaş Stadium. And we have a new stadium, and when you walk by or when you go in the stadium and you watch a game, there is nothing that compares to that emotion that you feel of kind of what you were describing when you first came to Italy and you heard that cheer. There is usually we talked about nationalism or unity in context of really negative terms sometimes, but there is something very mighty that happens that is that is something else. And I think I'm looking at this Euro 2016 almost with everything that has been going on in my country, in France, in Belgium, everywhere, in a lot of places, in Tel Aviv, as a kind of like a beacon of hope. Finally, something good is happening. And I think that Turkey is going to be in the semifinals at least, to say the least. But I really, in a way, too, hope that maybe France will win. Because it has a history of winning when it's the host country, but also because it will be such a good, Hollande will be very happy, but it will be such a boost also of morale.
When we come back, we'll be talking about how one individual athlete changed the world. His name was Muhammad Ali. Stay with us.